Hi, thank you so much for being here again with me today. I really appreciate it. Today, God laid on my heart just to share a story of something that happened to me in my life. So, it was actually now 6 years ago this month. I was the maid of honor in my cousin's wedding, and we were leaving the altar, and it was so emotional just to think of the leap of faith that she was taking to get married and the things that she'd been through, and she started crying. I was good until she started crying, but when she started crying, I started crying as well. And when I started crying, the best man, he put his arm on the top of my shoulder. And at the time, my ex lost his mind. He started talking about fighting the best man and about me being unfaithful to him, although I'd never been unfaithful, and the best man and I had never known each other prior. And I was so embarrassed because what was happening in private was now being shown in public, and I couldn't deny it anymore. But more importantly, I started arguing and fussing and fighting with him throughout the day. And the whole time, my son and my daughter were there, and my son was watching. And I found out my son was watching because the very next day, we're driving around looking for him a new school for a kindergarten. And he was 4 years old, almost 5 years old, and my daughter was under 2. And as we're sitting in the car, there's no music on, and my son starts talking to me. And he starts talking to me about the day before. And he didn't talk about the beautiful wedding, and he didn't talk about being the ring bearer. He talked to me about the argument. And he told me about what I said, and he said what he said, and what we did, and what he did, and what I did. And it was at that moment that I actually was able to receive the truth. And I was actually able to acknowledge that I was teaching my son the wrong thing on purpose. I was teaching him to be an abuser. And my daughter was young, but as she got older, if I stayed in that relationship, I was going to teach her. I was going to teach her to be abused. And I wasn't willing to teach that lesson. I wasn't willing to teach them the wrong thing on purpose. And so I want to tell you today that if you're in a similar situation, that don't teach your kids that lesson. You're their first teacher, and you're the most important teacher they will ever have. And maybe you don't love yourself enough yet, and maybe you don't have the courage yet, but I pray that you have the courage and the love for your children, because you don't have it for yourself yet, to leave, to not teach them that lesson, and to have courage that if you leave, that God will be with you, and that you'll be able to teach them the truth on purpose. I love you, and I'm praying for you. Keep going forward. Don't look back.